अस्सलाम वालेकुम ख़वातीन और हज़रात, हम के पॉडकास्ट की एक और बड़ी एक्साइटिंग एपिसोड के साथ मैं फ़हान मलिक आपकी खिदमत में हाज़िर हूँ. आई एम गोइंग टू स्विच द लैंग्वेज नाउ बिकॉज ऑफ द गेस्ट आई हैव. द गाय वी हैव टुडे हैज़ बीन working in Asia since last almost 2 decades. He is considered to be an expert on South Asian militant groups, and he was the last guy to interview Bin Laden before 9/11. An amazing journalist. I've been getting a lot of queries from emerging journalists, friends, people who are stepping into this field to know how this market caters international people and what are the opportunities and how difficult it gets for people when they become a journalist. Baker, thank you so much for taking out time.
Thank you very much.
Finally, after a couple of months, we get to see each other. Before I, start the conversation, I would like you to briefly explain what exactly have you been through in your journalistic career and how you became the main guy to cover militant groups in South Asia.
I don't know how to put this together, but I always believe it's if you need to do something different in order to bring the truth to the people. Doing something ordinary won't really make any difference. So first of all, I've tried to choose working in a region that, for our audience in the Middle East, few are working there. Talking about Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Southeast Asia mainly. So that's why I thought that I should take this challenge and work in this region. I can stand out. I can make something different, and I can also bring the voice of the people in this region to the Middle East, and also the people in the Middle East will understand more this region. So this is number one. Secondly, I've tried throughout my career to focus on what we sometimes call it in journalism the gap of information. There is always another angle to the story. There is always an information that is missing. People still wants to know about, to hear. So I've tried, even with the project that I'm working on here in Pakistan, we've tried to focus on this gap of information where we can bring a different perspective to our audience. Thirdly, it is the passion. I actually enjoy what I'm doing. It's not for me. Yes, it's a job. I earn from this job, but at the same time, it's a passion. That's why this keeps me always motivated and pushes me to give something different. Lastly, I certainly believe that journalism is a noble job. Bringing the truth to people is something really big. So I feel sometimes proud, privileged that I try always to give this the facts, truth, try to as maximum as I can, and present it to people, to our audience.
So you spoke about passion. What was the exact driving force, or when in your teenage you decided that you're not going to become, government servant, you're not going to become a singer, you decided you would become a journalist. What made you come into journalism?
If my background, I'm actually into mathematics and economics. I'm good in mathematics, good in econometrics, in physics.
Very good with
more
numbers.
Science. And I was actually pursuing my career this way. Till one day, I was asked by one of my colleagues, we have a news agency, why don't you write for us? I was actually a teacher, I was teaching. I was teaching physics and mathematics. And I thought, why not? I'm well equipped. I know my Arabic is very good, the standard Arabic. I used to write during my university and also when I was in the school, I used to write a lot. So I enjoy writing. I enjoy very much writing. So I gave it a shot, and actually I stood out in that pilot test, which was back then for that news agency, and they've chosen me to work.
So it was an accidental.
It was indeed an accident.
And when you became such a great name, mashallah. So when we let's fast forward to the time when I think in June before the 9/11, you got to interview Osama Bin Laden, and that was the time, if I'm right, you had a very high-profile interview scheduled with another personality, and you preferred to interview Bin Laden, and you were then flown away to, I think, Afghanistan, and you interviewed him. And right after that, you were probably the last journalist who interviewed him, and then 9/11 happened. What was the experience with him?
Of course, because of this interview, maybe I have a name in the market. Yeah, I think one of the main reasons, let me say, it is very interesting experience. Till today, we are talking about it, and I think no journalist would have missed this opportunity to meet the most wanted person in the world. So I got the opportunity to interview him. I've discussed it with my editor. I got the approval, and I went for the interview. And indeed, it was big news because the interview took place just a few weeks before the 9/11.
So I think right after, a couple of years later, you're also, the whole of your career is basically when you cover militant groups in South Asia, if I'm not wrong. So while experiencing all that turmoil that has been part of South Asia for so long, and then particularly covering militant groups, a guy came on this podcast a couple of episodes ago. He was taken away by a jihadi group in Afghanistan, and they kept him for like 6 years. He was son of ex-governor Punjab, and they kept him for like a couple of years. And
Salman
Taseer's son, yeah. So he had a very terrible story, and how they kept him, how they used to treat him, and he escaped then from their custody. We'll talk about how you were taken away and how you escaped in a later question. But my question here is, when we talk about covering militant groups in South Asia, or particularly the political instability in South Asia, what challenges as a journalist you faced, and now as you're running a group as well. So what are overall the challenges of South Asia, Middle East, and the rest of the world, as you have experiences all over?
Well, I think the main challenge is that this region and where I work is not a media-friendly environment. When I say media-friendly, I'm not talking about the people, I'm talking about the institutions in general.
Maybe the processes.
Yeah, there is a lot of control on the flow of information. There are consequences sometimes if you actually pursue the truth, or you want to report what exactly you see, or not what you believe, what you see in fact, just to report. So I think this is the main challenge, I believe, working in this region. On the other hand, it is with this challenge, I think for any journalist, this is actually a privilege and an advantage, I believe.
So I want to touch a bit on when you were taken away by the. Was it a group from Philippines, or they were?
Yeah, it's a militant group called Abu Sayyaf group.
Abu Sayyaf.
Yeah.
So how they got hold of you? How they took you away?
All right.
And I think you were kept for like 18 months or so. That's a long period.
For 18 months, indeed. Yeah.
So what was the experience? Why they took you, and how they kept you, and how you managed to escape from them?
So it's a long story. It's 18-month story, and with someone who's been kept hostage for 18 months. Every minute, it's like, like a year or more even. Yeah. It's endless, actually. A lot of things, actually, to talk about. But if I'll try to sum it up by saying I went there for a documentary, and my producer, who was supposed to arrange the interview with Abu Sayyaf group, apparently was working with them, and he sold me out to that group. So this is one of the lessons I always say when I teach journalists, that you need to make sure you know who's your producer, who's your coordinator. So many kidnapping incidents happen because of these. Even if we go back to the story of Daniel Pearl in Karachi, in fact, he was actually handed over to the Al Qaeda because Omar Sheikh was coordinating for Daniel Pearl his interviews, and that's how actually he fell in the hands of Al Qaeda. So my producer was the one who sold me out to that group. So I walked into their den, their stronghold in the mountains of Sulu Island in southern Philippines by myself. Once I reached there and I was preparing the camera setup with my camera team, they said, "You are our hostage." They made no offer. I myself went by myself to their...
So, what was the group you guys were working with? What media group was?
So back then I was working with Al Arabiya News Channel.
And the guy was on their payroll?
No, so that guy was a local journalist.
Okay.
And he was from that area. And he thought maybe from a foreign journalist we can get some...
Yeah, he probably made a good...
So it was a kidnapping for ransom.
Okay.
Yeah, for money.
And did your organization or your country pay the ransom, or
so my company was very much ready to pay the ransom.
But even if you pay the ransom, that's going to somehow it's being used against you at a later stage.
How?
But like if somebody has taken you and you pay them like $1 million,
right?
So they're a terror group. They're going to use that $1 million.
So here it comes the equation: who's more important, precious, the life of people, or this thing? I certainly believe, after going through this experience, the life of people are more precious. And if you want to deal with this, you need to deal with the roots of the problem. Why this militant group is actually still exists? Because in my case, I know this group was having connections with the local government there in that region, in that area. So they're kidnapping. They are not the only ones who would take the share of ransom when it comes. There are so many people who would actually...
It's a complete hierarchy.
Beneficiaries are like, there is a chain of beneficiaries in such a case.
And everybody is getting paid out of that ransom.
So I think to deal with the roots of the cause is better than to get the egg or the chicken. Yeah.
So how did you manage to get out of their custody? How long did it took you? And how?
It took me 18 months.
Just for the people, if somebody gets kidnapped.
Well, if someone gets kidnapped, and I don't wish it for anyone, because to be honest, it's nothing worse than you feel that you are not a free person. Nothing in life. And I have really learned through this difficult experience that people's freedom, people's rights are something religious. Everyone should respect it. Violating people's rights, trying to violate people's freedom, of their movement, their speech and everything is a crime. No one has the right. Has it been a state? It's been a group, whoever, individuals, they have no right to violate others' freedom to speak, freedom to move, and so ever. It is something really, it is actually why we live for, our freedom. Our freedom is very important. So during these 18 months, I've tried 3 times to escape. I failed twice. A lot of details in that. In the 3rd attempt, I was able to make it out because it was well coordinated with people from the outside. Again, there are a lot of details, and my company at that time, or the TV station, was very much involved in it. We planned something that is really from the previous two experiences. We had a very good plan, and I was able to, and we had people from inside the group themselves who actually were involved in this as well. So I was able to leave the place, and again, a lot of details in it. How much time it took me to reach the main road, and then I was lucky when I reached the main road. I met a police car, and I identified myself. Of course, I was well known in that island, the only journalist who's kidnapped in the mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what if it's a very sad story, and I'm so sorry that you had to go through it. But just imagine even if the police was so loud.
So So I was lucky because the moment I reached reached the police station, I asked him to take me to the hospital. And in the way before I reached the main road, there were people who are helping me also. They met them in midway, almost in the jungles.
Yeah.
And those people actually informed informed the authorities that now he is safe, and it's your responsibility now.
Yeah.
So they were aware, the government was aware. And there was a representative of my TV channel. He was in the Philippines. He was in one of the islands very close to the area. And he identified me because the people who helped me in midway, they wanted to make sure that the person they met is actually the guy who has been kidnapped, because they don't know me. There was a picture was taken by me by the people who were inside the camp to identify me that he's still alive. But I still had that call with he was the executive editor back then. He was in the Philippines, and he said yes, he is the guy. So the authorities were informed immediately, and the moment I reached the hospital, the Philippine Marines came to the hospital and sealed off the place, because they were, anything can happen. They can still go after me. Yeah.
So when I saw you for the first time on Instagram, I think that was there was a picture of you training, and it was a recent picture, I think, in the same age. I think that was not very long. So there was a picture of you, and you were training somebody. It was kind of a training of martial arts, and you had somebody around you, and you were training him something. And then I asked a couple of friends, couple of mutuals, and I got to know that you have this skill along with a journalist. You are actually training people for martial arts. Is that right?
Yes, I'm a certified self-defense instructor. Yeah, I've been doing self-defense for so many years. And in my early age also, I had a black belt in kind of martial arts called full contact, which is now the MMA that you see is the latest version of it.
Yeah.
But that was in early ages. We used to call it full contact or street fighting. Then I did taekwondo. I did kickboxing. Then recently, for the past 4 years, I've started doing a different kind of, we don't call it martial arts, we call it self-defense, because it has no rules, no art in it. Yeah, it's called Krav Maga.
How do you spell it?
Kravmaga. It's a military self-defense system that was developed for forces, special forces usually.
Okay.
Then later, a softer version of that was in the market, and I got the opportunity to because I most of the time I'm in Dubai, so I've joined one of the schools there, and so I did about more than 10 courses in addition to group classes and private classes, till I've got my certification as a third level instructor, which is the highest level for civilians.
Okay.
So I've been, and I thought actually and I was really happy to, to train journalists. I want all of my colleagues as journalists to know at least the basics of self-defense, where they should defend themselves when they are in a situation, either while they are in the field, while they are in even for women journalists, even if they are in their offices, at the street, in what we call it in
any unforeseen situation
or
comes
we
up.
call it like close quarters. Like this room is a close quarter. How to defend yourself in a close quarter.
So you decided to, I really want to know that once you have been through all the experiences in life, so you were you practicing self-defense before getting into all the troubles, and
Yes.
then you decided to teach it to all.
Indeed. So what happened? Yes, I have the experience of doing martial arts before my
coming to
academia.
journalism. And
But when I doing it, I started actually even developing kind of a course that how to also work in hostile environment, how to work when in an unrest situation. Along with that course, there are requirements that you should know how to defend yourself. So you need to learn how to protect yourself.
Amazing. I did not know this. So what should all those people who want to learn those self-defense techniques should do? How do they reach out to you? Should we mention your Instagram on this?
Well, I'm available. I'm happy to all the time for my colleagues as journalists. I'm always happy to pass this experience, and we should all actually be ready to. And I think in the coming months or the coming time, I would say, even in this region, I think journalists should be able to know how to work in a situation where it's, I would not say exactly hostile, but with a situation with unrest, how to protect themselves, and for women journalists especially, they should actually know how to protect themselves. They should know at least how to deal with the attacker in a way that at least they should come out of this situation safe. We don't need to learn how to completely take down that opponent, but at least you need to how to paralyze that person for a shorter time so you can leave, evacuate.
You can keep yourself
safe.
safe.
So you can quit immediately.
We'll add your email address and Instagram account on this, so everybody.
Instagram would be fine, not email, please.
Okay. We'll mention his Instagram on this podcast, and everybody who wants to reach him out for these trainings, I hope at least make a group and then reach you out. It would be difficult to teach everybody individually. Coming to the end, I want you to give a couple of tips from your experiences and from the amazing life that you have lived. Not very amazing, but at least very challenging life you lived. So, couple of advices for all the practicing journalists about their careers and how to keep themselves safe, plus how to be more productive and loyal to the work they are doing. So any tips for all the people who are listening to you?
Well, I talk from my experience, and I hope I'm actually correct here. I think number one, for journalists who are in the field, they should actually believe in what they are doing as journalists. Yes, it's a job that for our living, but at the same time, it's a mission. So we need to believe that journalism, or what we do, what we report, it's actually a mission to tell the truth. So this is one, you need to believe in this. Secondly, you need always to look for something different to report about. don't repeat what everyone is saying. Yeah. If you want to stand out, you want to be a journalist that stands out, that make a difference, you need always to think about, don't think like others. It's not only out of the box, it is completely something new, something different. This is how, again, you will stand out. Thirdly, we need always to believe that we need to tell the truth. We should not lie. Unfortunately, there is a glamour for the camera, for the lights, for coming in front of the screen, for having a name in the market. We should make sure that we don't really misuse this. There are big names in the market, and I'm saying here not only in Pakistan, everywhere. They're having huge following, huge presence, but this presence is being used for personal interests, not for serving the truth. So we need to make sure that we are actually true with ourselves first. That is for journalists who are actually in the field and who are having their presence in the market. And lastly, no story worth not to come back. You should always tell the story yourself. For some time, I was almost the story. I went to report a story. I was myself a story, and I was lucky that I'm still living, and I'm telling my story myself. Yeah. And I just on a light note, I want to add that actually since the time that I got back my freedom, I have 2 birthdays actually. So every year I celebrate birthdays. The day when I was born, and the day when I call it was reborn. Yeah.
So probably God gave you that second chance to, impact lives of all those people that you have training, and you're making them, self-sufficient to defend themselves. So
I hope it is like that.
Yeah, but we've seen it. Yes. So Baker, thank you so much for taking out time. It was a lovely conversation with you, and at least I had goosebumps, and it was you have lived a very great life, and I hope you continue to do all the amazing things that you have been doing. Ladies and gentlemen, ख़वातीन हज़रात, ये थे बकर अत्यानी, और आपने इनकी सारी बातें सुनी और किस तरह से ये कैमरों की लाइट्स और मीडिया को देखना और ये समझना कि जो तस्वीरों में आपको ज़िंदगी नज़र आ रही है वो शायद बहुत परफेक्ट है, लेकिन हम सब अपनी ज़िंदगियों में चैलेंजेस से गुज़रते हैं, और चाहे वो किसी भी प्रोफेशन से हों. तो ये थी कहानी बकर अत्यानी की. हम इनकी डिटेल्स यहाँ पे शेयर कर देंगे. अगर आप लोग इनसे कोई सवाल पूछना चाहें तो यू कैन टैग हिम ऑन हिज इंस्टाग्राम. हम के पॉडकास्ट के अगले एपिसोड में दोबारा मिलेंगे. तब तक के लिए अल्लाह हाफ़िज़.